Hey guys, it's Don Mike, your host for Producing While Asian, and welcome to today's conversation with Haven Everly. Haven is a very good friend of mine. We met because we were both in the movie called The Girl Who Left Home, and she herself is an incredible performer, actor, singer, and dancer, and she is also a social media influencer and content creator. So today's information is really, really relevant for anyone that is looking to start their own brand or create their own influencer content, as well as hear a little bit about the journey between being a performer and being a content creator. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's conversation. Welcome to Producing While Asian.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
I'm working at the restaurant tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Christine. I hate to do this.
If we don't give him a month and a half of rent, it's over.
There's a saying in the Philippines, where there's life, there still lies hope.
Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Fulfill my parents' legacy.
Christine, no. It's always been your dream to be on stage. You can't just let that go.
And now, are you going to stay?
So, hi Haven, how are you today? Thank you so much for being on Producing While Asian.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super, super happy to be here.
So, how is the weather out there in LA?
It's good. Surprisingly, it's getting
Okay.
hot. I think it was reaching like 95 the other day. So it isn't even summer yet. And it's already reaching the mid 90s. So I'm just preparing for the
so
summer.
Nice.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, we're ready over in Pittsburgh too. Like we had like surprise winter for a couple of days, and
Oh my
so we're all
gosh.
ready for the hot weather to come back.
Yeah.
But that's just so our listeners know, like we're not in the same room. You're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, and we're doing this chat. So
Yes.
again, it's so exciting to have you here. So let's just jump right into it. So for the people that don't know you, I mean, I obviously know you really well, but let them know kind of, a quick Spark Notes version of like where you came from, how you're a part of the arts and entertainment industry, and how you got to today. Obviously, there's no wrong answer because it's your story. So I'll let you go.
Yes, well, my name is Haven Everly. I was born and raised in Sacramento, California, in a very musically inclined family, very creative family. And I'm currently an actress and singer now in Los Angeles. And I also create my own content. So there's like the spark notes of my the synopsis of my life.
Yeah. And so you've been in California your whole life, right? You haven't lived outside of California ever?
I have actually straight out of
Okay.
high school. I moved to New York. I was there for 2 years
Hmm.
in Brooklyn, and my sisters and I were shopped by major labels. I was in a singing girl group with my sisters, and I guess you could say, booked a management team there. And we created a demo. We had music videos. We were in costume, and it was a weird time because there wasn't very much social media. There wasn't K-pop. There wasn't Bruno Mars yet. So it was a weird time because a lot of the labels weren't really sure how they were going to promote us at the time. So it's an interesting dynamic. But afterwards, we decided we wanted to move back to California. And for a little bit, we did do a few YouTube videos to really continue to pursue singing. And then eventually my sisters wanted to create different paths. And that's when I discovered acting. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And then I moved
And
to
so
LA.
your sound though, yeah, and you're in LA. And so your sound is more like, from what I've seen, just like R&B, pop, like Whitney, you'll people that are listening, you'll hear clips of Haven singing on this episode, but it's like out of this world. Like she like if you don't follow her on social media, definitely follow her TikTok, because those challenges you do with your mom are like so incredible. So
Thank
I'm
you.
assuming that's where it all came from your mom, right?
Both my parents, my mom and dad.
Got
My
it.
dad and mom were actually my dad, he hosted auditions in my uncle's garage once upon a time. And he was looking for a female counterpart for his wedding gigs. And my mom auditioned. And it's so funny because she was coming back from she moved to the United States from the Philippines, and she left all of that behind her. And so it's funny that she decided to take on this impromptu audition in like a janky garage, and she booked it and also booked a husband and kids. So
Yes.
yeah, so
I love it. I
after
wish life was that easy.
I know, well, I mean, it was definitely not easy, but it was definitely fruitful. Like they ended up teaching my sisters and me
sure.
how to sing, and it was really funny. It's a funny story, but yeah, and that's how we started singing.
It's awesome. So, being somebody that started off as kind of pursuing music and trying to be a singer and dealing with producers in that world, and now being somebody who's film TV actor and dealing with producers in this world, I ask this question of everyone, and like all my other questions, there's no correct response. And it's, on a scale of 1 to 10, or 1 to 10, 1 to producer, 10 being producer, where would you fall on that scale? And if the answer is no, that's cool, because then talk to us about your relationship with producers in your career so far.
Wow, that's a good question, Don Mike. I think from 1 to producer, I think it really just depends. I feel like there are a lot of days where I do feel like producer when I'm creating content for YouTube or for TikTok. As a, I guess, social media content creator, you're wearing not only 1, 2 hats, you're wearing all the hats. You're starting from one idea, and then you're creating a set. You're also creating the story. You're also practicing as the actor. And then now you're making sure the lighting is good. So you're doing everything to create this content from one idea to a full production. And I think that there's not enough credit for content creators because there's a lot of work that goes behind it. And not only just like the logistics of it, it's also the emotional thought of it. Because you're doing everything on your own, you have these insecurities too. So there are days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I am 1,000,000% producer, and maybe I don't like being 1,000,000% producer. And then there are days where I feel like, oh my gosh, no, like I just want to just give me a script. I want to just act. Yeah. I want to be an actor, or I don't want to do anything at all. And so I think that I'd like to live in the 5. I guess that's the ideal for everyone. I think the 5 is balancing and just really finding a really good balance of having days where you're not constantly on your phone and finding, just that happy medium of knowing your private life or your separate life, and then also producing your content and also acting and auditioning. So I'd like to ideally say I'm 5, but I'm definitely like 1 or producer.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it takes, well, let me rephrase. With our kind of people that we know, like most of us are like creatives and we produce at the same time, or we are the actor and we're the producer, or whichever combination of that. It's finding the people that are also kind of the one, and I don't want to say one-sided, but somebody who's like, I'm a producer because I just put money behind things, and then there's like people who are just performers. And so it's really unique to find the 5s. And that's so funny because like people normally like, oh, a 5, but like the 5s are like who we're trying to look for, because you kind of are like a one-man band almost, like you kind of do everything. And would you feel it's like kind of a microcosm of the bigger industry? It's kind of like when I was in journalism school, they train you to do all the things so that when you do get hired, you can have a complete whole skill set. So I feel like when us as content creators or actors and entertainers turn producers, it's kind of a version of that, where like if we get pulled into a bigger show or a TV show or something, we can bring that to the table and be like, well, I've done everything. So, you're not speaking alien to me. How do you feel about that statement?
I think you're totally right. I think there is power behind understanding all moving parts. I think that it's crucial, especially like what I learned being a, I guess, content producer is how much editing can affect the whole artistry or the entire product of a performance, right? And editing is one of the things I think I like the least, but it's again one of those necessary evils. And I noticed like, man, it makes a huge difference. But then I think when you are a one-man band and you understand all of those parts, it really does help when you do, for example, when you are on a set of something of a different nature and you're like, oh, okay, so this is the lighting person, this is the editor, this is, so you understand, you have a general idea instead of going in cold and being like, what am I doing?
Here I
So
am.
yeah, what do I do?
Yeah.
Tell me what I do. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like the more knowledge you retain, the more things you learn, the easier it is for you to adapt. I think it can get hard though when you're so fixated on how you want things to end up. I think that's like understanding and trusting others to do their job and to trust that they know what they're doing can get a little difficult when you've been a producer for so long. I'm sure you understand. It's like when you're creating all of your things and then you're having to let go and delegate. It's like, oh, but I usually do it like this, So again, it's the happy 5. Like I'm a solid 5.
Yeah, and that's the insecurities of, going from independent to working with a team. I totally get that. It's like, because it's almost like, do you ever feel an imposter syndrome almost sometimes where you're like, oh, I'm around this whole team. I feel like I'm the least experienced at this table. And like, that's my insecurity. It's like, I when I'm not in that set, I'm like, cool. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. It's great. And then I go in and there's like a team of 5 people and they're all like talking all these technical terms. And I'm like, wow, am I dumb? Like, I don't know. So,
oh my gosh, all the time. But it's really perspective when it comes to those things. Like that's something I'm trying to learn too. I had that even doing the film with you. We did a film together. You were the producer and the actor of The Girl Who Left Home. And I played Christine, the lead. There were moments where like, oh, I don't even know if I'm doing my part, because these are all seasoned people who specialize in one specific thing. Whereas I'm coming in, acting and knowing that, but also like, I feel, I just didn't feel as confident. But I think that there's also like, you can look at it that way, but also for me, I was trying to look at it as like, oh, I get to be in the learner seat and how grateful. Like I get the shot to really learn and grow and be a part of this community and be a part of this team of people who are super, super talented. So it really is a shift in perspective, especially when you're like a versatile producer to have to like go in a team of really, really talented, specialized people.
Totally. And what I loved about that experience with all of us on The Girl Who Left Home is that it really was a team of like all different kinds of experiences on both sides of the camera. For me, like I consciously made the choice so Mallory, for everyone listening, the director / head producer of The Girl Who Left Home, the movie, which everybody should go and follow it on Instagram at Girl Who Left Home. And so just plug that movie in there. But when we were talking about kind of all the setup, and even before we filmed, I called her and I consciously asked her to be an associate producer because I knew that I don't know a lot about film producing. Like I know how to put an event together. I know how to put a concert or, produce a musical. But when it came to film, I was like, I don't know. Like, what do you need me to do? Like run to get someone's vest? I don't know. And so I kind of took the bottom rung so that I could just learn from them. And so that was super valuable. And so and also just luckily being asked to do the movie too, as an actor, like that was cool to watch you grow and learn who Christine is and to watch you just like evolve in that, what was it, 3 weeks that we filmed?
3 weeks. Crazy.
Awesome.
So awesome.
Were you able to give any feedback while you were Christine as well? Like, would Mallory welcome any feedback or suggestions during the process on your end? Or was it mostly like, I'm the actor, that's what I'm doing?
I think she was really receptive to feedback from all of us. I think she was aware that this was kind of her big first feature film that she was doing. So she was open to all of our feedback. However, I personally didn't give much of it. I think I was so caught up in being in the learner seat that I wanted to listen more so than to give any feedback. And I wanted to grow because I felt like there was just so much opportunity for that for me. When it came to the singing and the things that I was most comfortable in, I did give her like, oh, can I do this, here and there, like sprinkles of it, but very, very, very rarely, because I also too knew that she knew Christine because she wrote Christine. And if she wanted me to sing Christine a certain way or perform Christine a certain way, I was going to honor that and also have it marry to who I thought Christine was. So it was a really interesting synergistic kind of relationship during that whole experience. And I think it really served well. I think we did a great job, all of us, so as a collective team. So I'm really, really proud of it.
Me too. I feel like we really, and I know like people talk about this all the time, but it's like the idea of a film family, like it really came through in this one, because there's nobody from that experience that I was like, I never want to see that person again. Like everybody was so awesome, and everybody was so open and kind and really great. And I love that there was no, well, of course there was like the cultural togetherness of like everyone being Filipino American or Filipino American adjacent, and like but the fact that everybody, there was no kind of, how in some projects you feel like a divide between the people that are leads and people that are extras and people that are in production team and whatever. Like this was just like everybody was doing whatever, and everybody was together and supporting where they could, even if it wasn't their role, which I thought was really great. But I also think that's just being Filipino. You just want to pitch in. So yeah. But yeah, girlwholeft.com, everybody go check it out when our next film festival will be. I'm just hoping it goes far. And so far, I know I have people that have talked to me about it. They loved everything about it and want to see it succeed. So I don't know. I'm sure you've run into all the same kind of feedback too, because it just has so much heart.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Let's just hope for the best.
Right. Fingers crossed.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast.
Finish the lyric, Mom. So I try to resist being last on your list, 'cause no other man's gonna do.
Hey, this is Haven Everly, and you're listening to Producing While Asian.
So tell us more about kind of maybe like a couple of memorable projects, like in terms of content producing. This sounds very interview, but like tell me about like one memorable one that you like just had an awesome experience, and then one that was more of a challenge. If somebody else was going through that challenge, what did you learn that you could be like, oh, well, I would have done this differently, or in that kind of vein. So give me a, as Kim Kardashian would say, a peek and a pit of content producing.
Ooh, that is a good question.
You've done a lot, so I know it's
I know, and it's
just one.
It's hard to do it for all the different platforms too. I guess a peak would be, it would be the TikTok videos with my mom. I think that the reason why I started TikTok was because my niece, my 11-year-old niece, Marley, she's a genius. She also told me in all of 2019, she was like, you need to get on this app. Like, you just need to. Everyone's on it. It's the cool thing, Auntie.
It's the cool thing to do. All the kill kids.
I know. And I'm like, I am not a kid. I appreciate it. But then December 2019, she was like, very adamant, like, I know you don't think you're a kid, but you need to get on this. And I was like, okay, fine. And so we ended up just doing videos together because I know she loved the platform and I was learning a lot from her. And so I just thought it was a great opportunity to spend time with her because she is in Sacramento and I'm in LA. So in the following month, in January, my parents visited me here in Los Angeles, and my dad had a stroke while he was here, and he's fine. He's fine. Just a disclaimer for everyone. He's okay. Yes. But it was like crazy. It was a crazy time because my parents ended up living with my boyfriend and I for 8 months. And during that time, it was really difficult for my mom and me because we were having to live in the hospital. We were having to tend to my dad during quarantine. And so TikTok became an outlet for my mom and me. And it was more so one of the platforms where I didn't feel like I had to overproduce, because TikTok is so much about having a good time and being like, being free. You want it to feel like a home video. I didn't think too much about being glammed up or my lighting. I thought more about like the content and singing and just having a good time. And so I started doing videos with my mom. And so eventually it was received well and people were really happy watching it. And then a few of them went viral. And then I noticed, I was like, wow, there's something here in this platform. I know Marley's like, I told you so. But eventually it was one of those things where I was like, wow, like I really enjoy making content and making people happy. And so even when my mom and dad decided to move back to Sacramento, when my dad was feeling better, I continued to showcase stuff on TikTok and sing and perform in front of people, all the people that are on that platform. And that became like a highlight, I guess, for me when creating content, producing content. I guess a pit would be, ooh, that's tough. There's a lot. So I'm trying to find like a lot of challenge. I guess generally speaking, it's learning as you go is really hard for me. It's like I want to learn everything at once so I can get good at it and be good at it and then produce, right? But the thing, the generalization of just like creating content is that it's, especially in social media, it's so fast moving that you have to just jump right in the deep end and just continue on and work on it and learn as you go. So learn about how it process, like learn about the algorithm, learn about lighting, learn about, you know, when's the best time to you know, put out content, but also like still continue to be consistent. So I think it's like the pit is having to like just go in cold and just try to learn and get better, even though you might feel like this is not perfect kind of thing. Sure, and I've learned to adjust to that.
Because it's almost like you have to just keep putting stuff out to beat those pesky algorithms, because you can't just post one or two things because it'll just get lost in the noise, as opposed to what Facebook, for example, way back, like what Facebook used to be, which was like a chronological timeline, and even Instagram too. But now it's like you have to be super smart about what you post, the words you even use in your caption, the kind of hashtags you bring in, if you tag certain people. I heard that when you tag a location, that also like helps boost whatever you're doing. Yeah, I thought I had, a handle on all things, and then Clubhouse happened, and I was like, wow, I'm 90 years old. I don't know what's going on. That's why we're doing this podcast, because Clubhouse to me is right now is a mystery, but I know that we're all on there trying to figure that out together. But
I know. I'm not on Clubhouse as a producer. I'm more so as a listener, but I don't know much of Clubhouse either. It's one of those things again where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get on it too. So I feel your pain. I totally feel your pain.
It almost feels like to me like a group phone call, which it's like, because you can, I guess there's a feature where if you're in a room listening to a conversation, they can make a choice to like open your call line to talk to them, which is like, that's crazy. But I guess it's what it feels like what social media used to be, where like everybody is really accessible and there's not a lot of barriers to talking to somebody on there. For anybody that remembers Friendster, like it's just really like just a way to just talk to other folks, whereas now you have to like follow if someone's profile is private or like things like that. But yeah, Clubhouse, I'll unravel it somehow, but it's it's literally
it's literally a group chat. It really is. Like back in the day, group chat meant typing in and out of like AIM or AOL, right? Like
a chat room, like a chat room all together. Yeah, all these children today that don't recognize the AIM sound. I had a friend's kid, like a friend's kid saw like an old school kind of those like phones that they had a cord, but like
a landline,
walk to the side of the room. Yeah, like a landline. And this like kid, it was like at school, and it was like a picture of a phone like that, and it said phone. And the little, I think my friend's child, I think their son, looked at her and was like, "Mom, that's not a phone." And they were like, "Oh wow, he doesn't know what a landline phone is." Because it was probably like an old puzzle piece from, I don't know, 15 years ago.
Oh my god!
So, yeah, landline phones are a thing of the past.
It's ancient.
Have an entire generation of children that don't know what that is. So yeah, now I'm understanding.
I know. I just remember when looking at like those old phones, right? Like where you have to.
Oh yeah,
being like, oh my gosh, yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so ancient. Now that's what a landline is to the next generation.
Right.
Oh man, we just totally
like they're gonna have those phones for fun. Yeah, they'll be like, oh yeah, I have this cool cool landline phone.
It's going to be in
My house.
museums. It's glassed up in a museum. Like, what is that?
And we'll be like, I remember in my day, I had one. It was just like now. I mean, I feel like, even in like 3 years, people would be like, I remember podcasts, because by then Clubhouse is probably going to be like the new podcast.
Yes. Oh my God.
But anyway, so was Instagram kind of your practice point for your TikTok content? Because I remember you were doing a lot of almost like I guess they do reels now, but like you're doing a lot of story stuff and static posts before, and now it's mostly on TikTok. Did that help prepare you for what TikTok would be?
Actually, I treated them as completely separate entities. I think that they are actually very separate platforms. I think that TikTok helped me understand the importance of knowing that there are people on the other side of the phone. Instagram helped me understand the importance of like consistency. I learned the basics on Instagram. But yeah, TikTok really like kind of put that fire in my butt to be like, okay, let me try to use that on all platforms, especially the one that's performing well organically. But there's all separate, because with Instagram, I do a lot of static posts and I do a lot of stories, not much singing. And then on YouTube, I do sketches, singing, I do everything. And then on TikTok, it's strictly singing. So it's like, they're all kind of different. They all have different audiences and they all have similar audiences, but I treated them all separately. And I think that right now what I'm working on is to kind of blend all three of them. And what TikTok has helped me with is really understanding like a niche of which I can really positively impact a certain audience. So it's really giving me like that kind of reference.
It almost feels like you'll have different brands, right? Like under, like the company is Haven Everly, but then there's like the Instagram brand and the TikTok brand and the YouTube brand and, maybe Facebook, but all those things. I feel like it's a kind of a, how do I define it? Almost like a baptized by fire lesson in creating different parts of your artistic brand, right? Like where, because what you just said about like audiences and who's paying attention on what platform, even though they all have a through line, which is you, and just seeing how people react to different things. Because then you also think about age, right? So like if I posted, I don't know, our interview on TikTok, literally no one in my family over 50 would know that I did an interview with you. But if I were to post on Facebook, they would be like the first ones to watch it, and probably like 10 times because they're like Filipinos. And it's it just knowing what age bracket is where just takes a lot of focus and a lot of understanding. So that's really cool that you've kind of navigated that and found like your own expertise in knowing where to post certain things. So that's really awesome.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's I try to be the person that doesn't pretend to know everything, just because, I know that if like down the road, I'm like, I need to know about social media, like, and, all that stuff. I definitely want to be like, I'm going to call up Haven because like, I'm just over here posting stuff, but it's really cool to know that you've done the research, because you have to, to really see what would go there outside of the fun part, which is making the content. So tell me a little bit more about your mom's involvement in your TikTok page. I know it's like kind of her release, but how is she? Like, is she going to be a TikTok tita? Really is my bottom line.
Oh my gosh. You know what? It's so funny. She actually is really uncomfortable, like as an actor or doing anything other than singing in front of a camera. My mom is a very, very, very shy person. So doing these videos, well, now she's not. I think over time she's gotten a little bit more outgoing.
She's like, I'm so shy. And then she's like, I know, she's like, her own channel.
I mean, it's so funny though. And I'll tell you this story. So one of the great opportunities that came out of TikTok was I got to sit with an executive of a major network show after the film, or major network. And another one of his associates wanted to sit on the meeting because he knew me from TikTok. Oh, yes. Cool. So he was like, I think I follow her on TikTok. So it was one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, who is really watching my TikToks, right? And right. So he was just there. I mean, like it was a Zoom call and I can, it was such a great meeting, great people. Fast forward, there was an opportunity, an audition for older titas for a film, and my manager reaches out and is like, "Hey, would your mom be interested in auditioning for
Like,
this?"
thanks.
Well, and here's the thing. I'm like,
You're like, oh, audition for me? No, your mom.
Right? And I was like, a hard no. I'm going to say no on this. And here's why. My mom, back in the day when she was an artist in the Philippines, she did do background work. And she got to the point, nice. And it was because she did go to school for nursing, so she was a nurse on set, but she was also a singer. So they had her act like a nun. And then she really got in like really good relationships with the people around the set. They asked her if she wanted to do a line. Like it just like she was working up the ladder, like unintentionally. And she couldn't. She was like, I can't speak. Like she was too petrified. Yeah. And so it was one of those things where I was like, no, I'm going to just say no. She does not want to audition. Later on, and these are the reasons, right? Later on, I tell her this like months later. I'm like, passively, I don't know why what we were talking about, but then I tell her, yeah, my manager asked me if you wanted to audition or something, but I told him no because you're scared of like performing in front of the camera. And I kid you not, I hear from like my siblings and my cousin, like they were like, she says you robbed her from her opportunity. I was like, what? I was so confused. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, she would not like to be on set. Like she would not like to act in front of a camera, maybe sing. And I told my manager this. I was like, if they want a singing tita, my mom will book it. Right? Yeah. She's totally confident, but it's like acting and saying anything outside of singing, like let's just forget about it. So she like to this day, she'll be like, yeah, you robbed me from my opportunity. I'm like, oh God.
You're like, I staged my mom. Like what?
Oh gosh.
Oh gosh, so that's funny. So funny. But I feel like that's just like Filipino parents. They're like, no, I'm too shy. And then like when the moment comes up, they like grab the mic and like have a huge moment, and you're just like, what happened?
It's like so true. Okay. So true.
Well, maybe another opportunity will come around for her, and she'll just keep doing TikToks for now. And
yes.
So we'll definitely share a clip of you doing that, like finish the line challenge with your mom, because it really is awesome. Because you don't see a lot of Filipino moms in her generation that have maintained their voice if they were a singer. So and really when you think about people like older Filipinos that sing, you think of like the comedy shows on like ASAP and like Eat Bulaga, who are like really over the top, like not like your mom sings and you're like, damn, like okay, like that's like a singer, not just like somebody who's trying to make fun of singing, So tell me,
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomenal CBD Store and PhenomenalCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, CBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello. Can you please finish the lyric for me? All by myself anymore. Yes, Mom! Hey, this is Haven Everly, and you're listening to Producing While Asian.
In terms of your film and acting career, have you had any specific inspirations that have really pushed you in that direction? And, and I can also translate that question to your social media work. Like, is there anybody that you work to emulate, like that idea that flattery is the best, or what's it called? Imitation is the best form of flattery. And I'm not saying you're imitating anyone, but have you had anybody that you've seen their stuff and you're like, oh, I would love to do my own version of that, you know, in terms of both film and TV and your content creation. Like, and they can be different people or different organizations, whichever. But I was just wondering about that. Like, where do you draw your inspiration from?
Yeah. You know, I draw, it's a lot. I'm actually like an observer of how professional actors have transitioned to content creators and vice versa. I think that back in the day, it used to be like actors are only actors. And then when they start singing, it's like, oh my gosh, like it was such a, you know, a negative thing, or vice versa. When singers try to act, they're like, okay, let's see what they got. And it's the same thing. You can see that kind of trend in the macro level happening with actors who are now doing content. I remember when Brie Larson started doing her YouTube channel just recently during COVID, like she got a lot of backlash for it. And I think because there's like, again, like what you're saying that didn't exist in The Girl Who Left Home. I think there's a lot of like stigma or social classes, even in the production and film and television content creator industry. Like there is like, you know, you're an A-list, you know, film star, you know, movie star, and then you're like a television star, and then you might be a YouTube star, you know, like that's in the bottom. Just content creating is like, it kind of has that stigma. But then you see how like Meryl Streep is now on a show, like now as a series regular on that show. I'm already forgetting the name of it, with the girls. And
I wish we had like a fact checker on our show, like Dax Shepard does on his podcast. Like there's like a literal person on there who's the one who at the end of the episode, it's like, I'm going to fact check you with all the things. So like, this would be the moment where I'd be like, I forget her name. I'm so sorry, Dax, if you're listening. But like, he'll turn to her and be like, oh, like, I didn't know that was that. Or he'll say, oh, I don't know what it is. And then later she'll be like, oh, when you mentioned that you were wondering whose name that was, she's like, oh, it was Meryl Streep, or it was this show. You know?
It was this show. Yes.
I'm not sure.
It's the Nicole Kidman show. I think Reese Witherspoon.
Big Little Lies.
Big Little Lies. So, you know, when she became a series regular, thank you. Well, so you can fact check yourself.
Fact check my own show.
Yeah.
One-man band, you know.
Exactly. Hence the production aspect, right? But yeah, when she started doing television, you know, and streaming started becoming a thing, like everything started to blend together. And I think that's what I'm noticing. It's like, you have to have some sort of following or brand on social media, regardless of, you know, if you're just an actor. Like it helps, it's leverage. And so I like to look at the artists and who create content as well, who still know how to like balance the two. One of them for me is Shay Mitchell. I love that she was from Pretty Little Liars, and then she does create content. She's really active on her social media platforms. I mean, it could even go to like Anna Akana. You know, she started as a content creator, and now she's in a major film, and she used to have her own show on YouTube Red. She was a series regular that she produced herself. So you're seeing these Asian women, or just, I mean, content creators or actors who, you know, people who started on film or television, start blending the networks or the platforms. And that's who I like to watch and observe, because I can learn so much from that and learn so much about how they're building their brand overall and like just hitting all the gates. I think that's what I hope to do, because I feel like everyone's the same person. Like you're probably watching TV, you're going to the movies, and also you're on Instagram and TikTok. Like you're still the same audience that would be on all these platforms. So I think that we have to like take away the smoke of like, and the fogginess of like these social classes or these like industry classes that we've put upon ourselves, because now the next generation, it's so crazy. I you know, like I look at a young kid and they don't see like, oh, this is a YouTube star. They see like, oh, this is a celebrity. Like they think like Anna Akana like is a celebrity. They don't think of her as a YouTube celebrity. That's us. That's us from the older generation, like thinking that there's a difference. So I think that like, I love to look at artists who have been able to like really achieve all of those platforms and all those gates.
For sure. And you know, not that she's on all of those platforms, but one person that I've kind of been like noticing a lot is Zendaya. Like Zendaya was a singer, like full on singer. And then she, you know, all of a sudden she was in all these movies, And then she now
Mhm.
has is it Amazon Prime or HBO, where she has that other series that she's kind of the star of. Watch her be the
Mhm.
star. And I was like, kind of the star.
Kind of
But like,
star
she's
of.
the star of the series. Yeah, and it's so she's been able to successfully navigate living between platforms and media rather than just being a singer and that's what she does, you know, and all of that. Because you look at people like Beyonce, even, you know,
Mhm.
she does some films every now and then, and really the last major film I remember her in was like Dreamgirls. I know there was stuff after that, but for me, well, that sticks out of my mind. But when you think of Beyonce, you're like, she's a performer, a music star, like that's who she is first and foremost. So I wouldn't think of Beyonce as being like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel, you know, or things like that. But other younger people in our industry are managing to do that, and it's kind
Mhm.
of like the new normal, like you just said. Like younger fans and consumers are now seeing people as, oh, that's Haven, she's a famous person, like, but they don't define
Mm.
you by one platform or one practice that you do,
Yeah,
which is great because that means
it's great.
I feel like we're breaking down the barriers of access in our
Yeah.
industry, right?
And I always emphasize that. I always emphasize, like, especially with like the older people who are a little bit older than me who are in the arts, I always say, like, this is you branding yourself. This is leverage. Like, doing social media and being your own content producer allows you the freedom to really control what you want to brand yourself as. Because as an actor, you don't get that power. You're given a script and
Yeah.
maybe you book it, maybe you don't, but you have this much power. Like, you're
Mhm.
very, it's minuscule. So use it as leverage to really put yourself out there, especially being Asian, because I feel like a lot of the Asian
Yeah.
artists that didn't have, opportunities to be a lead now can create themselves on social media and now show, like, I am the lead, I am the performer that I know I am, book me. Right. So I think it's just, again, a shift in perspective and using it instead of it being a hindrance, using it as an opportunity.
Definitely. And it's cool because so recently, last week, I finally drew up the courage to watch the Britney Spears documentary. And it's like, if you have not seen it,
I have
anybody listening,
not.
and you, it is heartbreaking because you're just like, wow, I don't understand how somebody who is basically somebody that defines our generation can be
Mm,
in such a vulnerable state. But my reason in bringing that up in connection to social media is kind of, and they said it in the documentary, which I thought was excellent. It's social media is destroying the paparazzi. Like the paparazzi has been there all the time. They're the ones that like make or break a star or somebody famous or not. And now that social media is around, all of these stars are defining their own personalities, their own BTS, so to speak, like their own, like putting out what they want to put out and letting people pay attention to the things that they want them to pay attention to, especially because it's
mhm.
coming straight from the source. So in what you're talking about in terms of like people are, especially AAPI people are, we're able to put out the things that make us look the best rather than having to pick a script that's super stereotypical because it's the only opportunity that's out there. You know, with
Yes.
paparazzi and social media, Britney Spears can now do her own videos showing her as a normal human being rather than
Mhm.
like all these horrible pictures of her in a gas station because she's being harassed by people.
Yeah.
So that's, I feel like that's the change that I'm seeing in our industry, is that it's positive. Social media, yes, has its like bad side, of course,
Of
but
course.
in
Yeah.
terms of trying to get yourself established and starting off and in that like honeymoon phase of like anything's possible, like social media is like your friend.
Yeah.
It really is helpful.
Mhm.
So do you have, and this is just a curiosity thing, but do you have
Yeah.
like a formula for your hashtagging? I have no idea what I'm doing when I hashtag stuff. Like I used
Mm.
to like kind of poke fun at hashtagging and like hashtag an entire sentence because I didn't know like what
Mhm.
like hashtag I'm eating a sandwich. It's a so like do you have a policy that you follow with your own stuff, or do you
Yeah.
just kind of see what's trending? What is your playbook on hashtags?
Yeah. Well, it's different on all platforms. For TikTok, you want to get to the point And I'm so grateful for all of the mentors and the instructors and the friends that are influencers who've taught me so much. But you want to get to the point where you're not hashtagging anything. But for me, what I do is I do no more than 3 hashtags on TikTok. I do 2 that are associated with the video and then 1 that's trending. And you can look at the ones that are trending just by the search button. And it has to be kind of analogous to what you're doing. So you don't want to just do the most trending word because then it just messes with the algorithm. So you want to do something that's kind of correlative to what you're doing. But yeah, so tops 3 to 4 hashtags on TikTok, which is who my good friend Alan Chicken Chow. I'm so proud of him. He is so
an awesome name.
His content is more so like really comedy based, short story. I actually met him through the Markion videos that we did. He used to be a writer on Markion's scripts, and he went from just recently. They did an article on how he's like the number 22, the top YouTuber. Crazy story. So he's now the top YouTuber, and we started around the same time YouTubing, but he is huge on TikTok, and he's now used that content and repurposed it on YouTube Shorts. So that helped really catapult his subscription or his following on YouTube. But anyway, he says like he doesn't even use hashtags, and you don't want to use the FYP hashtag because it's so overly used.
Right.
So for me, it's like you want as minimum, or he said for me, like you want as minimal hashtags as possible. And it has worked on some situations. I still am in the experimental phase with hashtags on TikTok. Again, there's a lot of like thorough experimentation going on when it comes to being a content producer. With Instagram, I do like at least 12 hashtags that are, again, correlative to what I'm posting. And it's always really high performing hashtags. Mm-hmm. But I also hashtag my name just because I think that's also really good when you're branding. Yeah, that's just kind of my recipe when it comes to hashtags. But I think that above all, I think consistency is the most important thing. So whether or not you're hashtagging, if you're posting sporadically, it's not really going to benefit your content. You want to do it like, if you want to really do it, you have to discipline yourself to do it like every day, same time, or every other day, same time.
Do you have a lot of trust in those programs that people use? Like, this will age me because I haven't really looked into them lately, but like Hootsuite, like stuff like that, that auto post for you so you can like put it all together. Like, do you have a lot of faith in those programs, or are you just like, no, I'm good with doing it myself and timing myself to post things? Like, do you rely on any auto timing with content?
I don't rely on auto timing. Like I do use some apps that help me kind of just map out my content. Like for example, Preview, I'll use that to map out my content. However, I think that might also affect, just having an affiliate might affect something like Instagram. I know that they're really strict on those kinds of things, but you can auto time YouTube. Like you can actually batch create and then just schedule those. I think that's really good when it comes to YouTube. As far as the other platforms, I wouldn't suggest to do that because I know that sometimes like the other platforms don't like that. They like organic posts. Yeah. So my biggest Go ahead. Sorry, my biggest advice is like to be your own like Hootsuite, right? Like have a calendar and really map out when you're going to post, because that's really the organization aspect of it is the business aspect of being a content producer.
Yeah, I feel like it's weirdly therapeutic when I go through my like Google spreadsheet or like Google Drive spreadsheet of like, even with this podcast, just like all the scheduling of contacting people and when their episodes are going to air and what we're talking about, and just like really being dedicated to that. It looks like, like a organizational dream to anyone like Marie Kondo who like wants it to be, in order. But it's helpful because then you also, I feel like it bleeds into other things in your life too. Like you just become overall organized because you're now on a schedule. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I used to try to depend on auto posting, stuff like that, but it just didn't make sense because then like if I made a mistake, then I'd have to like go back and like take it down and whatever. And things change too. So you never know if something you scheduled or planned to post a week ago would be relevant like 4 days later. who knows what's happening in the world. But so that's all awesome. And I would say my second to last question is just talk to us about, especially now in this climate that we're in, how have you kind of used your platform to really support just being an AAPI person, a Filipino American person in our industry, and just in your community? Like, I know for us here and for me and this blog, it's just really putting out all these awesome, inspiring stories of people like you to show people who aren't us that we're not, all the crazy things that they're defining us as. But what has your experience been like, not just in this time, but just like overall, how have you been able to fight for your place, so to speak, just because it's what we have to do?
Mm-hmm. I think that's exactly what it is. I feel like there's always been, I think when you're trying to pursue anything, the most important thing to focus on is to always remember what your why is. Like, why do you want to do this? Above all things, when things get hard, when you fail, why do you want to keep going? And I think that needs to be established from day one, because your why is what's going to propel you when things get super, super tough. And my why has always been to inspire others and to be able to tell others that I can live my dreams and so can you, but also to put Asian Americans to be respected in the industry of entertainment. Like, as a little kid, we were, like I told you from before, like from the beginning of this podcast, like being in New York was such a huge moment for me, and realizing like, oh, my dreams of wanting to be a pop star is really difficult when there's no pop star to reference here in the United States. It was always like, go back to where you're from. It's like, yeah, but I'm from Sacramento. Like, yes, my family is from the Philippines, and I'm super, super proud of that. But I'm literally from America. I'm American as well. And so I think that my why has always been to inspire others just in general, but also to really be one of the catalysts to really put Asian Americans on the map, or to really help the Asian Americans and just break those barriers of stereotype. And so it's always been kind of like that through line, the theme of my career. And when things like all the things that are kind of now becoming in the forefront, like all of the hardship that we're experiencing being Asian American or Pacific Islander or Filipino, like all these things are now being surfaced, because it's always kind of been there. It's now being surfaced. I think for me, because I'm more familiar with it in a different level, it's easy for me to speak upon it. I love to be a voice for the people who might not have a way of saying things, whether it just be an image and a caption of positivity, or showing my talents to show like other people can do this too. However it might manifest for anyone who looks like me or who feels the same way, like that's how I want to continue to put us on a place of just giving Asians comfort, and just trying to like let them know that they're being seen and being heard. So that's what I want to do generally, and that's what I keep trying to do. But I also respect others who don't know what to say, because culturally it's really hard for us to really stand up for ourselves. And so I for those who can't, I say like, that's totally okay. Just know that you are being supported. And I try to be that person who can, because I feel more comfortable doing it. And however that might look, I try my best to do that for them.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And I feel like everybody across the board, that's just what we're doing, is supporting each other. And because the AAPI community, in whatever setting it may be in, is super small. So we all, as much as we are a big part of America, we're also very close in terms of relativity to each other and connection, because this podcast is an example of that. It's like, so far in all of the conversations I've had, everybody that's been a guest has referenced another person who is a guest on this show, not because I asked them about it, because they just brought up that person, because that's how supportive we all are of each other. And so I think if we can translate that into the bigger world, more power to us to do that. So I hope everybody that's listening is, or the AAPI people that are listening, just know that you have love and support from all over. So that's why we do what we do, is to make sure we bring voice to our community and those that don't feel comfortable standing up. So given that, where can people find you? Like, where can they, what is your website? What are your your social media tags. And don't worry, people listening, we will put it in the description of this. But for those that do actually remember things, where can they find you?
Yes, so you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. With YouTube, it's youtube.com/Haven Everly, lowercase, no spaces, or no, yeah, just Haven Everly. And then on Instagram, it's a little bit different. It's Haven_Everly. And then on TikTok, it's Haven_Everly. But yeah.
Nice. Well, cool. Well, hopefully, you'll get a flood of people being like, I want your advice. Tell me more about how to be a content producer, but also people they want to book you and or your mom.
Oh my gosh, don't give her any more ideas, Don Mike.
We're just going to start the campaign now to get your mom booked into a movie. She's in Girl Who Left Home too.
I mean, goodness gracious. She's going to be like Lady Tita Who Left Home. Goodness gracious.
Right. We just have to tell Mallory now, like, we want a TV series, The Girl Who Left Home. Like,
right. Oh my gosh.
A book deal. Let's put it all out there, like all the different franchises of this film.
Oh
but
my gosh.
until then, I want you to know you're welcome to come back on the show anytime you want to talk about something or promote anything you're doing. I would love to have you back. But thank you so much for being here and being part of our first season and sharing your experiences. I know that I learned a lot today, and so I'm excited to share it with everybody listening.
Yay, thank you so much, Don Mike. It's my pleasure. It's been an honor to be able to talk to you and to really spread more awareness about Asian American stories and just our experiences. So thank you for this platform. Thank you for all your hard work in creating and producing this podcast. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Producing While Asian podcast. Our theme song was created by Luckstock. We are produced by Press Play Podcasts, and the show is edited by Michael Santos Sandoval. If you have a moment, please leave a review and a rating, and be sure to send us any topic ideas you have to producingwhileasian@gmail.com. To follow us, stay updated, and read our blog, visit www.producingwhileasian.com. We hope you join us again soon.